Negative emotions like loneliness, envy, and guilt have an important role to play in a happy life. They're big, flashing signs that something needs to change. Gretchen Rubin said that.
Hi, my name is Symphony, and you're listening to Parenting Confident Kids with your host and my mommy, Tamika Anderson.
Welcome back to Parenting Confident Kids podcast, your guide to raising your children to be happy and excel in life. Think of this podcast as a guide to use from time to time whenever you need some encouragement on this path of parenting. Are you ready? Okay, grab the kiddos and let's learn how to parent confident kids. All right, so for this episode, we're going to be discussing managing emotions. So you ready? All right. The question is, how do you help your child manage their emotions? And I want to share a story with you, something that just happened this past weekend. My 9-year-old daughter, she had her friend over for a sleepover, and her friend has a sister. So, of course, both of them came over. And one thing that I noticed during the sleepover was that her friend's sister was having a difficult time managing her emotions. It was like every time I looked up, she was angry, she was slamming doors, she was pouting, making a lot of noise. And just really frustrated. She was not in a good place. She was not happy. And it definitely showed. Now, I parent from a place of observation, which means that I sit back and I observe. And as long as someone is not physically harming themselves, I allow and invite them to come to me. So this is what I practice. And so my daughter, she knows this about me. So closer to the end of the sleepover, she comes to me and she says, "Mom, she wants to know if she can talk to you about her attitude." And so I was like, "Sure." And she comes into my room. And I sat there and I was like, "How are you?" So she, didn't really talk at first. And she's a 9-year-old little girl. So we sat there and we began talking. And I said, "So what's going on?" And she begins to tell me, "Well, I don't really like myself very much." So I just asked her, I said, "Well, why?" And she kind of shrugged her shoulder. And, she didn't really say anything else. And, I just looked at her and I was just like, "You're a very pretty girl." And she was just like, "No, everybody has to say that. They're just saying that you're just an adult. You just have to say that." And I was like, "No, I don't have to say that. I'm saying that because that's what I believe." So as we began to, explore more and talk and, she opened up a lot more, she began to share with me why she was frustrated, how she was feeling, what she was feeling, and what she could do about it, right? And I was just like, oh my goodness, this poor baby. She felt so sad. She felt so alone. She felt so unheard. There was a lot of emotions going on. And then what happened, she said that she just feels misunderstood. She's being bullied at school. She doesn't like her hair. It was all sorts of things that she was saying. And then she said that she actually wanted to kill herself. Well, that broke my heart. I actually had a conversation with her mom about it, to narrow down what was going on. And that's why I wanted to talk to you today about helping your child manage their emotions. In this age now, it's so unfortunate that we're having so many of our little people that are committing suicide. It's at an alarmingly high rate. However, we can prevent that. We can prevent it. And the reason why the little people are, feel like they have no other choice but to end their lives is because they don't understand how to handle all of these heavy emotions. Okay. And so that's where we as the adult, as the parent, are supposed to come in and say, hey, let me show you how it's done. Right. So I want to talk to you about that today, because after I spoke with the young girl, I gave her a journal and I told her, I said, when you're feeling any kind of way, whatever you're feeling, just write it down, just write. Because I remember when I was a child, and one of the ways, I didn't even realize this is what I was doing then, but it helped me. One of the ways I was able to manage my unhealthy emotions was writing. Like, I was a writer. I wrote. Like, I would get in trouble sometimes because of the things that I would write, but I would write it down. And I believe that really helped save my life. So, I want to share a clip with you before I get into my 3 tips, because I always do 3 tips. But before I get into my 3 tips, I would like to share a clip with you, of course, from Daniel Goleman, one of my favorite people. Daniel Goleman, he was on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday, and he was talking about the reason why we should help our children to practice emotional intelligence. So just take a listen.
And you believe that we should start fostering that emotional IQ in the cradle, actually.
Well, I think that parents, good parenting really means helping a child feel that they're cared about, tuned into, empathized with, and any good parent does that. Mm-hmm. But if you have that base, that secure base, then you can care about other people. Then you can manage yourself better. So I think that parents are the first tutor in emotional intelligence.
So we can teach ourselves and we can teach our children to have a higher emotional quotient.
Absolutely. And in schools, this is called social emotional learning. There's a lot of it going on. They were hoping to make it national, part of the national standard.
It should be national.
I think it should be international.
Frankly. I think it should be international. Well, because I have learned at my school that is what really matters. I started out looking for one thing, and now I know that having basically what social emotional learning is developing character.
That's right.
And a value system, and what a lot of educators now call grit. That thing that allows you to keep going and have resilience in the face of failure,
right.
And to self-awareness, to know who you are. All of those things, far more important, actually, or certainly equally as important to how well you do in math and science.
Another word for grit is technical. It's cognitive control. I was in a school, second grade classroom in Spanish Harlem. These are kids who live in the projects next to the school. Terrible, the drug dealers are the most successful people. All the
worst conditions,
there.
Yes.
Worst conditions you can imagine. Every day, each kid goes to their cubby, gets a little stuffed animal, finds a place to lie down on the rug, puts that animal on their tummy, and watches it rise on the in-breath and fall on the out-breath. Count 1, 2, 3 on the in-breath, 1, 2, 3 on the out-breath. Teacher says this keeps them calm and focused all day long. And this basically a lesson in mindfulness.
It's a mindful meditation.
And it turns out that from a brain point of view, what you're doing is strengthening the prefrontal cortex, which is the mind's executive center. It's the boss. It's the one that learns. It's where we plan, where we decide, and where we become mindful. And that, it turns out that if you take kids 4 to 8, measure their ability in this, and then pick them up in their 30s, it predicts their financial success and their health better than IQ or the wealth of the family they grew up in.
Really?
I absolutely love the points that he make about that. Social and emotional learning is so important for our little people, so important. So that's the reason why I wanted to share that clip. Now, I would like to, give my top 3 tips that I would give any parent, any of my clients on how to help your little people manage their emotions, right? So the first tip is practice what you preach, right? I mean, simple as that. Like I said, it's not rocket science. The tips that I give are not rocket science. However, you got to do them. What do I mean by this? Okay, so are you aware that if you're yelling and screaming at your child, that's the adult version of a tantrum? Hate to break it to you, but it is. Am I saying that I don't ever raise my voice at my children? Absolutely not, because I do. However, that is an adult version of a tantrum. You cannot make that your default setting. When something is going on with your children, do like I mentioned in the last episode about mindfulness. One of the things that you want to do is to ensure that you yourself, as the adult, are aware of your emotions and how you're feeling. If you're feeling angry, frustrated, upset, afraid, whatever those negative emotions are, check yourself first. Go take a walk away, remove yourself from the situation, whatever you got to do. Just don't let it out on the kid, right? So you can't tell your child not to have a tantrum if you yourself are having tantrums. So tip number 1, practice what you preach. Tip number 2, and this is something that's, I actually mentioned to the young girl's mom that I was talking about in the story earlier. Tip number 2 is do what I call daily kid motion check-ins. So what is that? That's like checking in to see what your child need for that day emotionally. Now, you can't do this if you're not in a good place emotionally. One of the reasons why practicing self-care is so important. Okay. So if you want to know how to practice daily self-care for yourself as a parent, make sure you listen to my episode where I talk about me time. Okay. But making sure you do daily kid motion check-ins, checking their body language, seeing what's going on, asking questions. How was your day? Watch their body language. I have another client where she gets home pretty late. And so she tells me, well, Miss Tamika, I get home pretty late. So by the time I get home, my child is all talked out. She's already talked to my husband, the nanny, everyone about her day. So she doesn't want to talk to me about her day. So how do I do that? And that's really simple. Don't talk about her day then. But you're still checking in with her emotionally, right? You're just saying, how are you, kiddo? How you doing? How you feeling? Whatever. But, put it in your language, however you relate to your child and whatever you say, whatever language you use with your child. And then just check in with them just to see what they need emotionally for the day. Okay. And then tip number 3, acknowledge their feelings. OMG. This is another huge one. I had another client where I told her to give me an example of what happens when her child would have a tantrum. So she's just like, oh, it gets horrible. I said, okay, walk me through it. Just, walk me through it, everything, what happens. Okay, so the child starts screaming. I said, and then what happens? And then I tell them to shut up. Sorry, not laughing, but I did laugh. And so then I stopped the parent. I said, wait, okay, go back. the child has the tantrum. Then what happens? I tell them to shut up, stop crying. Okay. So this is where this third tip comes in. You're not acknowledging the child's feelings. Yes, they're having a tantrum. Yes, it is probably annoying. Yes, it is more than likely embarrassing you if you're out in public. However, you have to acknowledge the feeling. So what I would do, instead of telling the child to stop crying, I would ask the child, why are you crying? Okay? Because now you're acknowledging the feelings. Why are you crying? I'm crying because I want. Now you know. Well, you probably already know that anyway. But you're acknowledging the feelings by asking, why are you crying? I'm crying because I want that toy. Now you can say, I understand you may be, insert whatever feeling, sad, angry, frustrated, disappointed because you want this toy. However, crying is not going to get it for you. Okay? All right. So let's go over these 3 tips one more time before we jet out of here. Because, we're parents. We got stuff to do. The first one, practice what you preach. If you don't want your child to have a tantrum, don't be yelling and stuff, having a tantrum yourself. It's not what we do. It's not a good look. And you're perpetuating the cycle. Tip number 2, do daily kid motion check-ins. Check in with your child every day, 5 minutes or less. Doesn't take long. Check in, see what they need emotionally from you, and provide it. And tip number 3, acknowledge their feelings. I understand you feel blah, 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 blah. Okay? Great. So, of course, I got something really cool to share with you. If you are having a challenging time helping your child manage their emotions, and they may even be acting out, I want to help support you in this journey. You've been listening to the podcast. You like my style. You know you do because you keep listening. I see you. All right. So since you already like my style, I have a program that will help you even further called Behavior Hacks Lab, right? And it is exactly what it says. It is like a mini little lab where we're going to help hack some behaviors. And I want to help parents just like you with some pretty cool and simple hacks that will save your sanity while building confidence in your child. So simply just go to my website, www.parentingconfidentkids.com. Click on to the tab that says shop and you'll see the link. Click the link and join today. We have a pretty cool Facebook private community and everything for it. So yeah, that's something you might want to do. I love you, but I gotta go. You know what time it is. It's time for the Kids Corner to come on through. Okay, we have here Symphony, a 7-year-old. Hi, Symphony.
Hi.
How are you today?
Good, and you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. So we're going to ask you a couple questions that you chose for us to ask. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, let's get this party started. So the first question is, of all the things you are learning, what do you think will be the most useful when you're an adult?
I think it would be, confidence.
Confidence? Really? Tell me more of this. Why do you think that?
Because confidence makes you be smart, and also makes you create your own stuff.
Oh, Oh, I absolutely love that. And that's so true. So let me ask you another question. If you could grow up to be famous, what would you want to be famous for?
I would be famous for art.
Art! So why art?
Because art to me, it makes beautiful pictures.
Yeah. So what's so good about beautiful pictures?
They kind of look like a picture of your life.
Yeah. Cool. So the next question is, if you could be invisible for a day, what would you do? Dum, dum, dum.
If I was invisible, I would do. I think I would try to scare my brother.
You try to scare your brother?
Yes.
I think I would too. All right, and the last question. What is the hardest thing about being a kid?
Well, the hardest thing being a kid is to be focused.
Focused? So why is it hard being focused as a kid?
Because you kind of need to get the jigglies out.
You gotta get the jigglies out?
Yeah. Every time when you get something, like you're doing something serious, sometimes kids can't just handle it and just say funny stuff.
Oh, I absolutely love that interview. Well, that wraps up our interview for Miss Symphony. Thank you so much for joining us, Symphony.
You're welcome.
Bye.
That's all the time for now. Thanks for listening to Parenting Confident Kids, where you learn how to engage your children, empower them, and help them to excel. It would be awesome if you could take a quick moment to leave a review on iTunes. If you'd like your child featured on Kids Corner or have any questions you would like answered on the show, please visit us at www.parentingconfidentkids.com. See you next time.